So the garden writes the menu, the chef doesn't, the gardener does. And then the gardener's also at the whim of nature.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are heading over to WA, something that I confess we probably don't do enough. So if you are in WA or you are a fan of a restaurant, cafe, winery in WA, and you reckon they should be on Dirty Linen, please don't hesitate to hit us up. This podcast is inspired by Max Veenhausen, great food writer. I am a big fan of Max's, and he put up a post recently about some movements at Millbrook Winery. So today we are chatting to Guy Jeffries, a previous WA Chef of the Year, who is stepping out of his role as exec chef at Millbrook and the group, the Fogarty Group, which owns Millbrook and a couple of other businesses, and handing over the reins to Justin Wong, who is a previous guest on Dirty Linen. I'm really looking forward to chatting to Guy about the way he's run such a produce-focused kitchen at Millbrook. Guy, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Hi, Dani. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. It seems like a big time at Millbrook and for yourself. Tell us about the changes.
Yeah, so I've been at Millbrook for 13 years now. Pretty good stint for a chef. A couple of years is what I was expecting out of management chefs that were coming through with me. So I love it out there. I still love it out there. It was just felt that it was time for a change. So as you said, I'm stepping back from being the executive of the group and the daily grind and making sure that everything's happening day to day, and going on long service leave for the rest of the year. And then coming back next year in a different role where I'll be focusing on doing some things that I never got a chance to do because I was too busy with the day-to-day with the group, and doing some cooking classes and some events for across the whole Fogarty brand. And yeah, having a bit of family time.
Wow, I love that. And just the words long service leave and chef aren't ones that you hear together all that often. So yeah, I'm really excited to chat to you today about, what you've been doing at Millbrook and across the group, but also this idea of longevity in a career sense, because it's something that, is a really tricky thing for a lot of people who have, apply their trade in such physical work. Not everybody can do that forever. But let's sort of frame this chat with a description of Fogarty and what the group is. Can you set it up for us?
Yeah, well, they're a wine group, own multiple wineries and vineyards around Australia. Tasmania is Lowestoft. They own that, which just won the Jimmy last week with their Pinot. And then Dalwhinnie over in the Hunter, Lakes Folly in the Hunter, Dalwhinnie over in Yarra, I believe. And then lots and lots in West Australia. So Deepwoods, Millbrook, Smithbrook, Evans and Tate. I've probably missed another 10. So predominantly a wine family focused group. And then Millbrook obviously offers a little bit of everything that the group encompasses in the way of vines, wines, property, views, food, and fun times.
Don't forget the fun times. So Millbrook is in Jarrahdale, about an hour south of Perth. Set that up for us, Guy. What's it like at Millbrook? And tell us about how you connected the kitchen and the garden. The kitchen and the garden.
Yeah, well, Millbrook's close to everything, but far away. It's pretty much 40 minutes from any civilization, I suppose, of like a town, Perth or Fremantle or Mandurah. It's close to everything, but then we're out in the hills, and I used to live and work down in Margaret River, and it feels like you're in Margs. It doesn't feel like you're in the Swan Valley. It's beautiful rolling hills. It's Jarrah forests, clay, which is, great soil for growing vegetables and vines. And I took the job there, 13 years ago with the vision of growing produce to use in the restaurant, because I was working at great restaurants, but using this, garbage veggies. And in my own backyard at home, we were growing heirloom vegetables and feeding the family, and had a few fruit trees. And I just thought if I could do that on a bigger scale. So you got to also think, 13 years ago, especially in WA, you couldn't buy heirloom vegetables. You couldn't buy quality vegetables. We had amazing cheeses and proteins and seafood, like it's all there, still is. But the vegetable scene was not a thing at all. And so that was the whole idea that I had back then as a young chef, to taking on my first head chef role. I thought that'd be my shtick and my niche and what I would go for. And that's what we did. And I took the job there. The Fogartys were all about wanting to use the property to grow vegetable as well. And the owner's son is the chief viticulturalist, John, and he was living on the property at the time, and there was a little vegetable garden. And when I started there, I said, let's make this bigger. And John just got the tractor out, and off he went. And I got this beautiful big 1 acre vegetable patch in the middle of the orchard. And that's just what we did. I planted the first seeds in February of 2010, getting ready for winter. And then, fast forward, I think 5 years later after that, I actually moved onto the property, and that's when everything started changing. Mainly for me, but also for the garden, because that's when I used to substitute vegetables with what we were growing from the market. I would call into the local market near where I was living and grab some stuff. And then I thought, well, now I'm living out here, I'm not going to be able to just drop into that market, so I need to put everything in to the garden here. And then gardens take a little while, so we moved in April, and then by the end of that year we had not bought any fruit or vegetables for the restaurant, and it was all grown there, and have maintained and continued that until still going.
Wow, that's really, really interesting, because I suppose in those days the idea that a restaurant would grow all its own vegetables was pretty radical. But when you think about a winery restaurant, it shouldn't be that radical. When you think about they're showcasing other produce that they're growing themselves, why would they be serving stuff in the restaurant that's from far afield?
That's right. And you need the land to do it, and when you're out in the country, you've got the land. I would say probably to answer your question, why isn't everybody doing it? There's a few people doing it now. Back then there wasn't very many people, very many winery restaurants. But I think the answer is it's expensive and it's hard.
Yeah, well, as a very beginning vegetable grower myself, I can attest that it's hard, even doing it on an extremely tiny scale. Tell me about some of the challenges and joys along the way.
Oh, just clay breaks your back and sand breaks your heart. So we're lucky to have been on clay, but my back's not the best for it after 13 years. And just trial and error in the beginning of planting and knowing what is going to grow in your little microclimate. So things, for example, I was growing at home. An hour away in the Swan, I was living in the Swan Valley at the time when I first started. Things that I could grow there wouldn't grow very well at Jarrahdale, and then vice versa. So just getting to know your environment and what grows well was probably the biggest learning curve. And so we just grew a little bit of everything to start, figured out what went well, and then dialed back and now concentrate and have educated guesses on what does and has grown, performed well in the past.
And what are some of your favourite crops, like your real successes, things that you've either worked hard to make work or that just absolutely thrive in that environment?
Tomatoes in summer for me are my favourite summer thing. We've got lots of different heirlooms that we've been saving and we've culled that down to about just 12 that perform really well. And they're also quite needy, the tomato plant. They require lots of manicuring and staking and management and crop rotation and mulching, and they're quite needy. But when you pick off a tomato in the hot summer sun and put it on a plate, it's quite delicious. And yeah, and then I suppose each season I have my favourite things. So yeah, but tomatoes in summer, broad beans in spring, winter. I'm a big fan of broccoli, side shooting broccolis, and autumn. What am I going to pick for autumn? Probably paprikas.
And Guy, tell me about how you've run the menu with this, direct connection to the garden. And I suppose, what have you had to explain to chefs that come into the business about how things work differently?
So the garden writes the menu, the chef doesn't, the gardener does, and then the gardener's also at the whim of nature. So Justin, who's the head chef, and Mitchell, who is the head gardener. So every Thursday so we're shut on Tuesday, Wednesdays, right? So every Thursday afternoon, the two of those two guys and used to be me as well, would go down the garden with a beer in the afternoon after work and have a walk through. And Mitchell tells Justin, this is finishing, and physically looking at it, obviously. This is finishing, this is coming on, this is in a glut, and walk through the whole garden. This is what I've planted, yada, yada. And then Justin takes all that, thinks about what he needs to use, and then out of the garden. And then that is the menu for the week after. And then on Sunday before, after service, Justin will write up, I want this, and this. But it's not like I want 5 fennel and, it's like all the fennel that needs picking. And he already knows what that is because he was in the garden on Thursday looking at it. And so then that menu, and then when we come back to work after Monday, after the 2 days off on Tuesday, Wednesday, then Mitchell's picked all the vegetables and they're in the cool room ready to go, and the team gets prepping, and that's the menu. And then it just keeps happening every week like that.
And what's the difference, do you think, when you're eating like that or creating a menu like that? What would diners experience differently?
We have a lot of customers that will come 4 times a year to experience each vegetable each season, because we don't have tomatoes on the menu at the moment because we don't have tomatoes coming out of the garden. But if you come in January and February, then you'll probably get tomatoes on a few dishes. They're just, what they can expect is some beautiful produce that's come from our garden as the highlight of each dish.
And what about the chefs? A chef that's been working around the place, different types of restaurants, then comes to you. I mean, what happens to their cooking journey?
Well, hopefully they gain an appreciation for vegetables as well as meat. We get in whole pigs and butcher them, and whole fish and all that sort of stuff, like the whole nose to tail, which is, has been a thing for years. Treating the vegetables the same, and not wasting the carrot tops, like making something out of the carrot tops. Beetroots come with leaves, like when you buy a beetroot from the shop, it doesn't usually have any stalks or leaves. So just utilising and using everything to its potential. And it's almost like when, if we've got a dish on with beetroot, for example, there's obviously the bulb, but then there's also the leaves in that dish. And then, like, when we've peeled the beetroot, we'll dehydrate that into like a dust or something, just using the one vegetable in multiple ways. But on the menu it says like beetroot and lentils or something.
Wow, it's so understated, but so much thought and honouring that goes into it. This, I reckon, leads us pretty neatly to No Waste Mondays. Tell us about that guy.
Yeah, it's a juggernaut. It's really cool. It's one of the things that I'm very proud of sort of creating. So it was a while ago. I've lost track over the 13 years, but I want to say probably 6 years ago. Katrina Lane was the venue manager at the time, and we had a really awesome working relationship, really like-minded in just how we approached restaurants and food and things like that, and came up with the idea we used to be shut on Monday, Tuesday, and came up with the idea to open on Monday and use up what was left from the week's service before we went on days off, to then come back to, and when we left, there was no food going in the bin, because when you're running an a la carte menu, you'll need to go in with X amount of serves on that last day, and then, you're not going to sell exactly 15 pork that day, you know what I mean? So what we came up with was just, trying to minimise the amount of food that was being wasted at the end of a Monday. And so every table, we write a menu for every single table on Sunday afternoon with what's left, because we might have, I don't know, a pork shoulder, two fish, and a duck or something, and these are the veggies that are floating around, and coming up with a menu for each different table to utilise that and writing it all out. It's actually quite a process. But then it sort of also evolved over the years into taking on that real no waste ethos of, like when we make the butter, we keep the buttermilk, and then we'll use the buttermilk on Monday. You serving the fish heads on Monday, and the fillet during the week, and using the head and the wings on a Monday, and just pretty much keeping all the byproducty stuff of the service and of the weekly service to then utilize in a more casual thing on a Monday. And it's gained pretty good momentum. The next available table is February, I believe.
Oh my goodness. So is that the hardest table to book in the restaurant?
Books out about 2 to 3 months in advance for the Mondays, and so it's really heartwarming to walk out and I used to carry the food out, because by the time you tell the floor staff all the different things that you're serving to all the different tables, because there's like 20 different things, it's just easier to run it yourself and quickly tell the customer. So it's actually really, really proud moment for when I look into that dining room on a Monday lunch in the middle of Jarrahdale, and it is chockers full every single Monday. It's probably one of the coolest parts of the last 13 years.
It's interesting that you do still run a la carte on your regular menu. A lot of restaurants that do work, garden to plate, also run a set menu just because of exactly what you've said. You don't want stuff left over. Why have you stayed a la carte?
I like choice. I like the customers to eat like I like to eat. I'm not a Digo dude. I'm not really into that. So we have a set entree, but it's all for the table on a normal day, but it's all shared. So there's like 4 dishes that will go out. So that way we can use up the glut of the vegetables that we have, all the different ones. And then you get a choice of main course, because, I don't know, I just think that it's nice to have a choice. And then, and then if you want dessert, you don't have to, but if you want dessert, then you get a choice of dessert as well. And and then just with that Monday, though, that's how it opens that up to not be throwing anything away. And I think even if you did have like a set menu, there still would be wastage of food for sure.
Interesting. So, Guy, let's talk about longevity and, this miracle that you've got long service leave. I love it. Tell us, you're sort of at a turning point in your career. Tell us about the trajectory and how you think about longevity in a career that can be so difficult.
When I took the job 13 years ago, I didn't know that I would be there for 13 years. I took the job to get the garden up and running. And then I just loved it so much. And I think that all that hard work that was put in just kept it really interesting. And it was, the Fogartys have been really great to me and my family. Like I raised my kids out there and my wife, we were living out there and they, by living out there, it felt like, obviously, it's not mine, monetary, but it felt like I treated it. The respect they showed me, I gave them back by treating it like it was mine, and then that became like a lifestyle. And I feel that the more energy and effort you put into something, you want to keep seeing it through and making it bigger and better, and then when you do make it bigger and better, then I felt that I wanted to prove that it wasn't just a flash in the pan and maintain, and then stayed on for longer to maintain it, just to prove that it could be done, and we were doing it, like not buying the veggies and stuff like that. So yeah, I just think that if you in my earlier career, I would always do at least 2 years. I thought was fair to see how a business ran. As a sous chef, I'd do 2 years here, 2 years there. And I think that that's fair. But then when I got to where I was comfortable to be a head chef and set out and had my idea of what I wanted to do, I think it was a good idea to just immerse everything I had into it and build it to be the best that I could make it myself.
But as you've touched on, there was a lot that was coming from you, but you did need to have that commitment and backing of the owners. I mean, do you think it's possible to play it the way that you have in other smaller businesses, or do you think that having that big structure behind you is what's made the difference?
I think you could do it with a small business. But having the backing of a big group of the Fogartys was, yeah, I couldn't have done it without them. Firstly, you have to have the land. So I can't afford a big chunk of land out in a winery. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I think that their support is the only reason that I could have done that, for sure.
Do you sort of, fear for independent restaurants because of things like this? It is hard for people to create a viable long-term career when, you don't have those resources?
I think that you could still definitely do it, just don't put a 1 acre garden in, make your shtick something else, something that's more viable for whatever you are, like whether it be whatever. I'm not going to come up with someone with your idea of what you want to do, but I don't know, if you want to specialise in butchering whole pigs, then that is something that you could do. Or if you want it to be a sustainable seafood restaurant, or whatever it is you're setting out to achieve, then yeah, you can definitely put everything you have into it. Like I ate somewhere in Japan and the dude still reckons he couldn't cook eel and it'd be as good as he could, and he'd been doing it for 60 years. So
that is such a good point, and I absolutely love that you've brought it to that, and just that dedication to craft. Which I guess can just be a man and a pan. It doesn't have to be large scale. So yeah, I love that answer. Guy, I'm interested in this idea of doing cooking classes. Is that about equipping or skilling up people in particular techniques that you've learned over the years? Like, what do you want people to get from your cooking classes?
Yeah, definitely. I want them to understand basics, because pretty much like the food that I was doing at Millbrook is very basic. It's produce driven and not faffed with and not chefed with. Like, one thing I would always tell a new chef that was coming in was, like, especially a head chef, was, your job is to not stuff this produce up. Don't go trying to be clever with it. It is what it is. Just, make it tasty and don't try to do chefy crap to it. So with the cooking classes, I just want them to be, they're sort of, very small scale, and it'll be with me, and you have my undivided attention, and I'll be showing, and it's hands on as well, probably just for like 10 people. And then at Millbrook, we'll probably go for a little garden, walk through the garden, grab something, and then concentrate on basics. Like, we might do a vegetable preservation class. My wife, in her spare time, loves making a bit of pottery. So she's knocking up some vegetable fermentation crocks, and it'll be like, we'll pick some cucumbers out the garden, show you how to ferment them. We'll concentrate on doing a few other things, some kraut and some pickling, some jamming, whatever it needs to be. And then take your crock home, and in the meantime, we'll sit down and have some lunch and eat some of the ferments and pickles that I've got from last year, and a glass of wine, happy days, just basic things like that. So,
wow, it sounds idyllic, and I'm keen to know how I can book in. So let's stay in touch about that. No, that sounds so good, Guy. And how are you feeling about making this decision and pivoting to what's next?
Yeah, it was not an easy decision. It's not something that me and my wife took lightly. We sort of did have a goal. We had a 5-year plan, and it did involve me leaving Millbrook. So, and then it wasn't going to happen for another couple of years. But my wife, unfortunately, got some bad news with breast cancer at the start of this year, and she's fine now. Thank God, 100% clean. But just living out there and having to go get the radiation and, daily for months, just realised how far away we actually were from civilization, I suppose. So that was a big part in the decision of just, enjoying life together a bit more and being a bit closer to family and friends, I suppose.
Wow, Guy, I'm really sorry that you've been through that, and similarly so glad that your wife is well now. That's great, but it's amazing. Life can throw something at you and really clarify what you want to do, or reshape your goals. Hey,
definitely.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat to us at this, really interesting moment in your career. Congratulations on everything that you've achieved. Enjoy the break and the family time. And I can't wait to hear more about what you throw yourself into next year.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for getting WA on the phone for a change by the sounds of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. Well, thanks to Max for that. So shout out to Max again. Thanks, Guy. Have a good one.
See ya.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinenat.deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This